Peace, y'all. What's up? What's up? Want to address something in response to the mayor a week ago about the homeless shelters and building new shelters, and especially out in Brooklyn and Bensonhurst and all that. You know, and yeah, I got my take on it. I could understand why a lot of people are against it, cause from my personal experience, right, whenever they build a new homeless shelter, they usually do one near a park, especially in Manhattan, right? And whenever you see a shelter and there's a park nearby, you're going to see people from the shelter just going to the park and just not doing anything. They're not looking for a job. They're not doing anything. A lot of them have mental issues. Some of them are drinking. Some of them are doing drugs out in the open. I'm talking about heavy drugs like cocaine, crack, fentanyl, the drug, and some of them are selling drugs. They might come from another shelter and they go to that park and then they sell the drugs to the dude that's from that shelter. And just recently, I think the last 3 months, there's been two shootings in Tompkins Square Park, and I've been noticing for a long time, since 2016, 2017. You know what I'm saying? Like, dudes on the west side of the park, getting high. The drug dealers are right by the basketball court on West 4th Street and down, you know what I'm saying? And, it creates an atmosphere, you know what I'm saying? One side of the park, you have families that want to chill out, especially on the weekends. You got the college students. Then you got the drug dealers and drug users, you know what I'm saying? And it's just not cool. And the mayor said that a lot of these shelters are for men, single men with mental health issues and so forth. I mean, if somebody needs help, they need to get help. You shouldn't be in a shelter, because what you're doing is you're creating a situation where that person might snap and might hurt somebody in that community, you know what I'm saying, or in that part of Manhattan, you know. This goes for any neighborhood, any neighborhood where got families that want to raise their kids the right way. Shelter is not really the answer for people to get help. Now, I personally knew somebody that I had to cut off again. Because kept asking me for money, and he was in the shelter. He used to ask me for money because he didn't want to end up shelter. He didn't want to end up in the shelter, and then years later, I bump into him again. He's in the shelter and he's asking me for money again. I had to cut him off, but he was still doing what street guys do. He's older than me. He's from that era of the big drug dealers, right? He's from the era, but he's not looking for a job. You know what I'm saying? He's asking me to help him out, but he's great by just chilling in the park there and doing what he does, and then he getting arrested for boosting, and then he's selling drugs all the while. See what I'm saying? Like, most, and so the reason why I'm bringing this up, right, is because the mayor has said that people who are against the shelters being built, new shelters are being built in that community, are against single black men. He used the race issue. That's not the issue. That's not the reason why people are against shelters, you know what I'm saying? People are against shelters because people in the shelters don't want to get help, or they're lazy, or they don't want to do what they're supposed to do and get a job. You know what I'm saying? And people, the older people who are protesting, they know, because they're older than me, and they know, they see it for years. Every time a shelter is built, that's when you start seeing the drug dealing. That's when you start seeing the junkies. That's when you start seeing the dudes walking around talking to themselves, acting like they want to hurt somebody. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem. It's not about single black men. You know what I'm saying? Now a lot of them tend to be African American and then Puerto Rican also. You know, which says a lot about our community. You know, and but he's race baiting the issue because most men that are in the shelter system really are not trying to do their part. They don't want to let go either of the drug habits or their lifestyle. They don't want to let it go. You know, and most people who end up in this, half of the people who end up in the shelter system, they fail. They fail. They end up going back to jail. Some of them die from overdosing. It's a waste of money. You know what I'm saying? Shelters, in my opinion, shelters should be for families or single people that really need it who are working. They just need a place to stay because they can't afford it. That's for shelters. That's what shelters are for. People who are selling drugs, I mean, you know, you deal with them the way you have to deal with them. People who have mental issues, they need help. They need mental help. A shelter is not a place to get mental help. People who have drug addiction, you know what I'm saying? They need rehab. They need to go to rehab, not a shelter system. You know what I'm saying? They just, that's not the way it goes. I see it. You know what I'm saying? For years, you know what I'm saying? And I don't see a change in anything. No, I don't see a change in the people who claim they're looking for a place to stay and getting help. But what did they do? They sell drugs. What did or they decide to steal something at a boutique store and then they get arrested. And now they fucked. And nobody's gonna help them at the end. I'm not gonna help them at somebody at the end. And for doing that, nobody should help them. You should help yourself. They have to learn responsibility for themselves. And these are older dudes too. These men are in their 50s, 60s. I mean, if by now, if you're still in and out on the streets and you're close to 60 or in your 60s, you know, it's your fault. It's nobody else but you. And they don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. And those are the people that are in the shelter system. And those people just don't care. They just are wilding out. They're still talking, trying to talk to chicks. I mean, if you're in your 60s, bro, like, come on, you gotta chill with that. You know what I'm saying? Just get help, get a job. So I think, I'm taking it a little personal, but it's just from my personal experience, you know. Like, I've seen this for a long time, and for the mayor to even bring up the race issue, that's wrong. That's wrong. It has nothing to do with people being against single black men. It's really just dudes. A lot of them from the African American and Puerto Rican, my community. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not gonna say just African American. I'm not gonna say just Puerto Rican, because where I come from, you know, the hoods I lived in, it was African Americans and Puerto Ricans, and a lot of dudes is half and half. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It's all the same. Where I come from, a lot of dudes just they come from this mentality of it's cool to be in the streets, and you know, they get, once you start dealing drugs, you know, you're in it for a long time. And luckily I never got caught up in it, but a lot of people did. Or the stick up kids, you know. I mean, I understand when you're a teenager you get caught up, but at a certain point in your life you gotta change, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of these dudes in the shelter ain't changing. And so the shelter should only be for single men or women who have a job or who are not on drugs or who never sold drugs. They need to check the person's background, you know what I'm saying? Because, and it's true, the reason why people, the Asian community in Bensonhurst, which I never knew there was a big Asian community in Bensonhurst. I always thought Bensonhurst was white, because when I used to live near there, it was all white, and I knew never to hang out there. But, you know, like, I understand where they're coming from, because a lot of those Asian people are older than me. They've seen what happens when a shelter gets put in a community. The community goes down because the people in the shelter are just wilding out. They're not acting like part of the community. They're acting like they're still in the hood. You know what I'm saying? So when you go to Tompkins Square Park, when you go to Madison Square Park, you know, even yeah, those parks in particular, and even Union Square. Although I don't think there's a shelter in Union Square, but you see single men from the shelter hanging out in Union Square. They look like they're ready to spaz out. They're talking to themselves. They're getting high. They're selling drugs. But it's more on Tompkins Square Park and Madison Square Park. Those two parks, I see it. I seen it. You know what I'm saying? It like once you put a shelter, you're in that park, you're gonna see that kind of situation. That's why you have shootings there. You know what I'm saying? Because all those shootings and all the drug dealing and the drug usage, that's all coming from single men are in the shelter system. You know what I'm saying? And they need to clean the shelter system out. They need to. I mean, the same thing they're doing with these migrant shelters. Same thing. And I'm sorry to say that I'm not. I come from that. They come from my community, but maybe I see things differently. Maybe I know I've also grown. Um, not that I was never mature, but I'm just growing more now, and I just see like we're all human beings. At the end of the day, you can't just blame whites or Asians for your actions because you can't get your shit straight, because you can't get your life straight, because you want to ask people for money, even though you're selling drugs and you're supposed to have money. If you're selling drugs, that means you got money. If you're selling drugs and you're still asking me for money, that means you ain't doing shit with your life. And then you go in and steal something from the boutique store. And I mean, it's just crazy. Especially with the migrant issues that's going on right now. It's just freaking crazy. So I don't blame them for being against building a shelter there. I believe the individuals that don't want to get help, the individuals that do have a drug problem, can't just. It's like they're just throwing them in the shelter and lying about it and saying, "Oh no, they're getting help. We're gonna help them." That's not true. Before Mayor Eric Adams got in, the shelter system was a problem. It's been a problem. I've seen it. People in the shelter system still selling drugs. People in the shelter system still getting high in the park when they should be looking for a job. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lie. It's a lie that these people in the shelter system are getting help. They're not. They're just throwing them in there. And then when they get arrested, it's space for another person. It doesn't make sense. It's just, they're just building shelters to have shelters. Just maybe to make some money off it. I don't know. But shelters should only be reserved not for people who don't want to get help, and not for migrants either. I'm sorry, but I know it's not the mayor's fault completely, but he allowed them to come. He could have turned them away. And I'm not against immigrants. I'm just against illegal immigrants, because you see what's happening now. But that's a separate issue that I'll talk about in a separate video. And I know I haven't done videos in a long time, but I'm too busy running around. But now I'm on vacation, so I have some time. But I think those shelters should only be preserved for people who really, really need it and deserve it. All these other people, especially dudes from my community, that's single, that they don't have a job. It's there's a reason why they don't have a job. It's because they're not really trying. And you're gonna stick those people in a shelter. And you're gonna put a shelter in a beautiful park in Manhattan, or in a nice residential neighborhood in Bensonhurst, in the Asian community. Really? Those people don't deserve that. No. So so that's his so that's my take on it. Peace.